So, here we are again. Check out who they can't stop talking about. Welcome back, you lovely walking question mark. You live in narrative twists, you ultimate mind benders. They are unable to classify. I've been waiting for you to get here because something exciting is happening right now. Something totally insane. You've been out there quietly being, evolving, minding your own thing, and transforming into this unidentifiable force of nature. They have been in a downward spiral. I'm talking complete panic mode, group chat meltdowns, late-night messages to people you barely know, and asking the same urgent questions over and again. Are they all right? Whatever happened to them? Have you seen what they've posted? When did they become like this? Here's the funniest part. They don't ask because they care. They ask because they are afraid. I am terrified that you have figured anything out. They never will. They are terrified that you have opened a plane of existence beyond their comprehension. Terrified because the person they believed they'd eliminated, discarded, and left for dead has returned as something they can't describe. Allow me to construct a picture of what's actually going on behind those screens, those false grins, and those casual-looking texts to common friends. They are refreshing your site as if it were a stock ticker. They check your stories numerous times a day, despite the fact that they muted you months ago. They ask others about you casually, attempting to mask their fixation as care. Hey, have you spoken to them recently? They appear to be different. Translation: I can't quit thinking about how they advanced without my approval. I need someone to confirm. I'm not the only one who has observed, but here's what is really eating them alive. It's not like you changed. You changed. Without their involvement, consent, or request for comment or confirmation. You just woke up one day, looked at your life and the people who were sucking your energy, and decided, I'm done playing small for people who never believed in me anyway. Then you vanished. Not dramatically, not with a loud declaration, but gently, like if smoke dissipated into the air. And while you were away, in your cocoon, performing the profound, hard, and beautiful job of becoming, they persuaded themselves you were broken. They told each other that you couldn't manage it. They whispered that you will eventually creep back. But didn't you? You did not beg. You did not explain why you did not share sad quotations or cryptic messages. You just felt quiet and became something they were unprepared for. They are now watching the aftermath and are unable to comprehend what has happened. You're not sad or bitter. You are not out here anxious to prove yourself. You're just living with this terrible calm, this unconcerned energy, this strength. I don't owe you an explanation, and it's making their heads spin. They perceived your quiet as defeat. But in actuality, you were silently planning the most terrible counterattack. They will never recover from this. Because here's the thing about true metamorphosis. It does not need to make a formal announcement. It does not seek an audience. It occurs in the darkness. And that moments when you select yourself repeatedly, rebuilding from the inside out. They are at a loss for what to do with you now that you have returned, radiating tranquility and strength. You are not the same person they thought they knew, and you have quit playing their game. Stop reacting to their bait. Stop give them the pleasure of knowing they reached you. You now navigate through life as if you are keeping a secret that no one will ever comprehend. And the secret is driving them nuts. So they're doing what weak brains do when control is lost, gathering gossip and putting together parts of your development like detectives unable to solve the crime. But this is something they will never grasp. You are neither a decipherable riddle or a fleeting phase. Someone who cannot be reprogrammed into a lesser version of themselves. That version of yourself no longer exists. It's gone, burned, buried, and erased from the system. What's walking now is an upgrade, a storyline surprise they didn't expect, and the finale. They don't get to narrate, and it's hurting them inside because they realize they had access to something special, something pure, and they squandered it. They had your devotion, time, and presence, and they squandered it. They imagined you'd always be there, decreasing to make them feel bigger. But you awoke, recognized the game for what it was, flipped the whole board, and walked away. Now they're imprisoned in a game that no longer exists for you. They're not welcome to join you in creating a whole different reality while you're out here. They aren't bothered about you. They're concerned about themselves. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your silence speaks louder than any argument. Your tranquility poses a greater danger than any vengeance. Your radiance, confidence, and vitality. It's a mirror that shows them everything. They are not. They inquire, are they okay? Not because they care, but because they have to. Believe it or not. They need to think you are suffering behind the scenes and that your authority is just temporary. Because if you aren't, if you're actually prospering, happy, and better off, it shows they weren't as significant as they formerly imagined. It indicates their absence did not break you. Rather, it freed you. It implies that you never needed them to ascend. You simply wanted them gone. And that fact, that ego-shattering understanding, is something they will never recover from. And here is where things become even better. They aren't only inquiring about you anymore. They're observing you. They treat your postings like holy scriptures, studying every word in your captions and attempting to understand your energy via pixels on a screen. Have you seen their bio? Did you spot the subtle flex? Why are they so calm? What do they understand that we don't? The answer, of course, is everything. You now understand that their views do not define you, that their affirmation was never true power, and that everyone who went was really creating room for your growth. Every single person who questioned you, disregarded you, or viewed you as an option is now watching from the sidelines, astounded by how untouchable you've become. You are not fortunate. You're not acting. You are not putting on a show. You're merely being the version of yourself that has always been underneath the layers of people-pleasing, self-doubt, and dread of appearing too much. You stopped apologizing for being so intense. You stopped lowering your light only to make others comfortable. In the darkness, you stopped explaining yourself to individuals who had no interest in understanding you. But you did not seek for permission. You did not wait for validation. You did not check to see whether your change suited their storyline. You just done it. You woke up every day and selected yourself again until it became second nature. You can break relationships without feeling guilty. You left without getting any closure. You stopped showing up for debates you never began. And now they're rushing to understand what they're seeing because the person they believe they could anticipate and manage no longer exists. What lies before them today is someone who has gone through the fire and emerged stronger, smarter, and more free than before. Someone who has touched rock bottom and erected a throne. They are someone who confronted their own darkness, accepted it, and transformed it into knowledge. You aren't frightening because you are harsh. You are scary because you are unrestricted, free of their ideas, judgments, and desire to define you. And that freedom is the most potent force a person can possess. They sense that every time they see you walk through the world with elegance, tranquility, and perfect detachment. That's what haunts them. They keep wondering, what has changed? But the reality is, nothing has changed. You just quit pretending. You quit putting yourself into situations that don't suit you. Stop laughing at jokes that are not humorous. You cease engaging in talks that deplete your spirit. You stop being accessible to those who only remembered you when they wanted something. You stop providing emotional support to folks who never inquired whether you were all right. You stopped caring about those who had no intention of going beside you. And when you finally let go of all that weight and stopped playing the part they gave you, you started to ascend. Because here's a secret. They never wanted you to understand you were always so strong. You were always so magnetic. You've always been capable of greatness. You were just bogged down by too many false ties, too many phony pals, too many one-sided relationships, and too many people who loved the idea of you but never the reality of you. You were surrounded by voices telling you to keep little, quiet, and modest. But you stopped listening. You stopped seeking approval from individuals who were never going to offer it truly. You stopped waiting for others to acknowledge your worth since you realized it yourself. That quiet internal revolution in which you stopped seeking external approval and instead began to trust your own voice, intuition, and vision. That was the moment everything changed. That is what they are experiencing right now, and that is precisely what is causing them to spiral. You're not reacting anymore. You do not hurry to protect yourself. You do not explain yourself, nor do you attempt to prove anything to anybody. You just live in your reality and let others to interpret it whichever they wish. That type of self-assurance, that calm and unconcerned spirit, is very dangerous to those who base their confidence on making others question themselves. They cannot manipulate someone who has learned to trust their instincts totally. They cannot gaslight someone who has completed inner healing. They can't control someone who has severed all emotional ties they ever had. So they do the only thing that remains. They discuss, gossip, and conjecture. They create false narratives to explain what they observe. Because the fact that you outgrew them and went on without hesitation is too painful for their ego to bear, they must imagine there is turmoil underneath your peace. They must feel your item is ephemeral. They must assume that what they are seeing is merely a phase. But it isn't. This is neither a phase nor a facade. This is you, the real you. Before the world ordered you to shrink and life taught you to apologize for your brightness, there was another version of you. This is the you who stopped waiting for approval and understood you didn't need it. And now is when it becomes really gorgeous. They will continue to watch. They will keep chatting. They'll keep attempting to put together your narrative, like investigators fixated on a puzzle they'll never solve. Every time they contact a common friend, ask whether you're all right, or attempt to smuggle information about your life, they're doing you a favor. They are keeping your name alive in rooms you have never visited. They are offering you free real estate. They consider you the primary character in their tale. While you're out here, don't even think about them. That is true power. You are not attempting to make them obsessed. You're just living. You aren't attempting to make them regret losing you. Your growth alone does this, since they are gradually realizing what is happening. You didn't just endure their absence. It contributed to your success. You advanced rather than just moving on. You did not merely heal. You turned into something they could never grasp, touch, or really understand. And this revelation will torment them for years. They are questioning common friends about you since they cannot ask you directly. Why? Because they burnt the bridge. They ghosted you. They made it apparent that you were not worth their attention back then. But now that they see you blossoming, they realize they can't simply text you and pretend nothing happened. You alter the game. You increase the bar. You did not become inaccessible out of spite. You did it out of self-respect. You finally realize that not everyone is entitled to your energy, time, and presence. You realize that certain individuals were merely there to teach you things you would never accept again. And once that lesson was realized, they were obsolete. And not in bitterness or rage, but in peace. That is how they feel when they see you. Now consider the gap they built and the implications of their own decisions. They understand what it's like to be on the outside looking in, only to realize too late that they no longer have access to your world. It's eating them alive because they now realize they never had the power. You did. You walked away first. You never looked back, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. They're now locked in this bizarre purgatory, able to see and observe you from a distance, but unable to approach you. They may see your development, but not touch it. They cannot claim it, be a part of it, or even stand near it. They've been relegated to spectators in a performance where they formerly had a lead part. And it is this change from participant to audience that is causing them to break. They are understanding too late that being in your company was a luxury they took for granted. Having your attention was a blessing. They squandered a chance to know you for who you were, raw, strong, and authentic. They bungled. And now all they can do is watch from a distance while you become everything they never imagined you might be. They're anxiously messaging everyone, wondering what happened to them. However, the solution is straightforward. Nothing has occurred to you. Everything occurred for you. Every betrayal, disappointment, every attempt to make you feel small was all part of the plan. Every grief served as training. Every rejection was building you into someone indestructible. Someone who no longer needs their approval, no longer fears their absence. Someone who walks through the world with calm confidence, knowing they've already endured the worst and come out stronger. You are not a victim of your past. You're a living example of resilience. You aren't defined by what shattered you. You are characterized by the way you rebuilt yourself. And that is what they see today. That is what is causing people to panic. They witness someone who was meant to be broken standing higher than ever. Someone who was supposed to be bitter but exuding calm, and someone who was supposed to rely on them but thrives without them. And the communications to common friends are not motivated by compassion or concern. They're motivated by dread. Fear that they have committed the worst mistake of their life. Fear that they will let go of someone who is easily replaced. Fear at what they are going to see. You win without them. And they will feel that anxiety and remorse every time your name comes up. Every time they see you shine, they will feel it. Every time someone acknowledges your progress, tranquility, or brightness, they will feel a hurt deep in their breast. That's your vengeance. Nor wrath, nor resentment, and not attempting to harm them back. Your vengeance is tranquility. Your retaliation is progress. Your vengeance is becoming so clearly gorgeous that their absence becomes the most significant loss in their life. They wanted you to fail without them collapsing so they could claim, "See, I knew they couldn't do it." Instead, you are making them doubt everything. You're leaving them wondering whether they ever knew you at all. You're demonstrating to them that the version of you they disregarded was just a trailer, a preview of this version, the one they can't stop asking about and following from the shadows. This is the whole movie, and they missed the premiere. They handed up their ticket. They walked out before the tale even started. Everyone is now telling them how legendary it was. And that is their punishment, living with the sorrow of missing your climb. Meanwhile, you aren't even thinking about them. That is the distinction between where they are and where you are. They are still gazing back, caught in the past, whilst you are going ahead with purpose. And this is something they will never comprehend. They believe that change is loud. They believe that development must be broadcasted, recorded, and demonstrated to the public. However, true change, such as the one you experienced, is quiet. It is private. It occurs in the quiet times of late-night conversations with yourself at 2 a.m. when no one is looking. And yet, everything changes. Nobody ever sees their tears. The quiet breakdowns occurred behind closed doors. When you choose to heal rather than hate, you have to make difficult choices when no one is there to support you or even notice. It's the silent limits you set in the sand without having to send out a notice or defend them. It's the moment you choose peace above righteousness, silence over pointless fights, distance from drama. It is the grace you provide to yourself when you make a mistake, react, or revert to old habits. Because you now realize that mending isn't a linear process. It's about the forgiveness you offer, not because they deserved it, but because you understood that harboring that animosity was poisoning your soul. You released it not to make them happy, but to set yourself free. You've altered in ways people can't understand because they're focused on your reflection rather than your soul. They skim through your social media, looking for hints, reading captions like codes, and scrutinizing grins as if they could decipher the depths of your soul. However, your development cannot be quantified in photos or words. The true transformation occurs in the hidden places. It's in how you breathe before answering, rather than reacting. It is in the discipline you show when you might lash out, but instead choose grace. It's in the quiet you keep. When turmoil screams your name, you must have the fortitude to walk away from people and circumstances that are no longer beneficial to your progress. Even as you walk away, your heart hurts. That is where your power now resides, in your restraint, emotional maturity, and capacity to remain firm in your beliefs without arguing them. That's what they don't understand because they're still looking for the acclaim. They continue to mistake attention with love and exposure with value. They assess worth in terms of likes, views, and who is watching. But you've stepped out of that delusion completely. You discovered something considerably more valuable inside yourself. The real you, underneath the masks, the expectations, and the urge to succeed. You've returned to your own energy, which is why your art feels so strong. It was made, nourished, and safeguarded by itself. So, when they whisper, "Are they okay?" the answer is yes, but not in the shallow. "I'm surviving," sort of. It's the type of yes that indicates I thrive in quiet. I am not simply okay. I am satisfied. I'm not only mending. I'm developing. I am not simply getting by. I'm gleaming from inside, pure. Okay. And in a way that indicates you are no longer seeking peace. You embody peace. You become whole in a world full of distractions. And that is the type of strength that cannot be faked. And here's something they'll never say out loud. Eurocentricity concerns them because, deep down, they wanted to matter more than they did. They wanted their absence to last longer, and to be felt more strongly. They wanted to think that they had left a permanent scar. But the reality is, they are going. It didn't shatter you, but it opened up space. Real friendships that reciprocate energy, true love that does not require you, and possibilities that could not reach you while you were surrounded by takers all need space. Space for tranquility that does not need continual maintenance. They believed going away would weaken you, but it just gave you space to breathe. And with each breath, you rebuilt yourself. Brick by brick, habit by habit, boundary by boundary, you created your own secure haven. You discovered that isolation is not loneliness, it is sacrosanct. You discovered that preserving your energy does not make you chilly. It makes you wiser. You learned that closure is something you make, not something you wait for. You're now creating a life that does not rely on anyone's approval or affirmation. A life focused on truth, not performance. A foundation built on lessons learned rather than losses suffered. Day after day, you're building something substantial and precious, a reality that represents who you've become rather than who they attempted to persuade you to be. And here's the lovely irony. They'll never fully see it. They'll continue to attempt to decipher your piece to figure out what changed, but the solution will always evade them since your metamorphosis did not occur on their timetable or in their presence. It occurred during peaceful hours. They never inquired about it. It occurred in isolation, which they interpreted for weakness. It was in the stillness that you encountered yourself and recalled who you were always supposed to be. That is the type of development that cannot be documented, explained, or undone. It's the type of development that radiates without making a sound, that talks without words, that lives beyond perception, and that your serenity, strength, and quiet confidence is something they'll never comprehend but will always sense whenever your name comes up. They believe their departure would humble you. They feel that by going away, they may deplete your confidence, vitality, and sense of worth. They believe they were eliminating something important from your life, that without their approval, validation, and presence, you would diminish. They pictured you doubting yourself late at night, revisiting past events, and rewriting your value in light of their absence. They feared that leaving would shatter you, but they didn't comprehend their absence was not a punishment. It was purifying. It did not kill you. Rather, it polished you, removing everything false, superficial, and no longer fitting the person you were becoming. Their absence did not humble you. It released you. They believed that leaving would teach you to appreciate them more. They planned to create such a horrible emptiness that you'd finally reach back, eager for their attention and acceptance. Instead, it taught you to respect yourself in ways you hadn't previously. You realized that love without reciprocity is not the same as abandonment. You discovered that energy must be reciprocal, not extracted. You discovered that calm is considerably more valuable than closeness, and isolation is far more therapeutic than phony friendship. They expected you to break apart, but you really fell into alignment. You stopped seeking what was exhausting you and started attracting what was intended for you. They expected you to come crawling back. They relied on your loyalty, compassion, and forgiving nature, the same traits they formerly used to keep you in their circle. But you did not crawl. You rose. You ascended in silently, without having to justify your merits. You awoke with a serenity that terrified them, a brightness they could not shade as they anticipated despair. You provided dignity. They expected you to find closure, but instead you made peace. They believed they were giving you a lesson, but the universe was educating them. So let them continue texting. Let them continue to ask common friends where you are, what you're doing, and who you're with. Allow them to keep pretending. They are merely inquisitive. Every inquiry they ask about you is an admission. When the room quiets, they admit that they can't stop thinking about you and that your name still lingers in their minds. It's an acknowledgement that their strategy failed. They believed going away would give them strength, but it just gave them perspective. They believed they could simply replace you, but instead they are tormented by your energy, the tranquility you radiate, the light they can't imitate, and the power they had no idea you had. The greatest thing is, you don't even need to make that admission. You do not need their apologies, approval, remorse, or acknowledgement. You have already created a universe in which they do not exist. You've entered a new phase of your life in which their opinion is meaningless and their acceptance does not drive your passion. You've stopped waiting for answers from those who have only given you uncertainty. You've stopped leaving the door slightly open for those who go out and then locking it behind them. You've stopped wishing for the message, the call, or the sign because you've realized that they'll never be able to offer you peace. You needed to give it to yourself. You're not making room for them anymore. You are not mentally rehearsing talks. You don't worry what you might have done differently. You've made peace with the truth. The fact that they were departing was what set you free. And now you're creating something genuine. A life that accurately portrays who you are. A life so full, so rich, and so profoundly connected to your soul that there is no place for those who denied your brilliance when you needed it the most. That is your win. That is your redemption. That is your peace. Power is not derived from vengeance, but rather from release. Power comes from being unconcerned rather than being understood. Power is when you no longer need others to perceive your value because you realize it for yourself. You no longer seek closure. You make it. You no longer seek approval. You embrace it. You will no longer pursue love at the expense of your serenity. You are the peacemaker, and it's the part that will haunt them for years. Realizing they no longer have access to your energy, heart, or attention. They'll continue to observe from afar, trying to find out how you did it, how you healed, how you shined, and how you became untouchable. Without their assistance, they will hear your name in places you have never visited, which will hurt. They'll scan through your updates, pretending not to notice, but subconsciously comparing their stagnant reality to your progress. Every accomplishment, smile, and peaceful moment will remind them that they might have been a part of your journey. However, they chose ego over empathy, control over connection, and comfort over bravery. And now they have to live with the repercussions. Meanwhile, you're unstoppable, not because you can't feel suffering, but because you've learned to transform it into purpose. You have learned to dance in the rain. Instead of waiting for the storm to pass, you've realized that serenity isn't only the absence of noise, but the capacity to stay quiet. In the center of it, you've perfected the skill of letting go without resentment, forgiving without the need for touch, and loving yourself without seeking approval. You are unstoppable, not because life became easier, but because you lost your fear of difficult situations. You believe in yourself now. You trust your time, your instincts, and your path. You believe that the cosmos eliminates what isn't aligned to create way for what is divine. You've discovered that endings aren't punishments, they're redirections. You've discovered that isolation isn't loneliness. It's a precious place for change. You've learned that letting go is not weakness, but rather wisdom. You've realized that the calm you've established in secret will always be louder than their chatter in public. And that is what they see today. That is what is unsettling them to their very core. They can't imitate your strength since it stems from anguish they've never experienced. They cannot equal your confidence since it was forged in the furnace of your own development. They can't replicate your item since it's based on alignment, not consent. You become a version of yourself. They never granted you permission to be. You developed into the person they attempted to make you believe didn't exist. You moved out of their shadow, and their power faded, since it was based on your self-doubt. They are now left with just the memory of who you once were and the reality of who you have become. They are understanding too late that they did not leave you behind. You outgrown them. You have developed beyond their grasp. You really transcended the dynamic. You are not angry or resentful, and you are not waiting for retribution. You're just done, calmly, forcefully, and forever. That's what really haunts them. Not your success or radiance, but your indifference, since they finally realize you were never theirs to shatter. You were always going to climb. They expected their departure would humiliate you, but it crowned you. It made you the master of your own spirit, the dictator of your own energy, and the creator of your own destiny. They departed believing they'd finished your narrative. But all they did was leave before the finale, when you were unstoppable. That is all for today, dear Father. I pray for the deepening of my faith. Please help me trust you, even when tangible proof is scarce. Let me believe in your eternal presence, knowing that you will never hurt me. I realize that your thoughts for me are positive and not negative. to offer me a bright future. Thank you, kind and everlasting Father, for always hearing my voice. I give this prayer to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provisions. I am thankful for your presence in my life and the richness you provide. If this video spoke to you, please subscribe to the channel and share it with others who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your trip and how you're getting ready for your own victorious homecoming. If you would like to help us out, please consider donating via Buy Me a Coffee. This allows us to consistently improve our content in order to provide you with the best possible experience. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No present is too tiny. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity spreads God's message and gives people hope. Do not stop here. Watch our next video for amazing insights into the indicators that indicate you are the chosen one. We've loved sharing this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for sticking with us. Until the end, keep shining brightly and facing your fate with bravery. See you next time. Enlightened knowledge bestows blessings to all lovely individuals.